What's up? And let's try this again. And another attempt to relaunch this channel. It's been a little over 1 year since the last video, being the April Fool's Day Uno the Movie review. And that was about a card game about a video game, which was it turned into a video game. This is about a book about video games that has been turned into a movie. Ready Player One. I do want to go into this saying, I haven't read the book. I had no interest in reading the book. I'm one of those people who believes that if you're going to go into something like this, you watch the movie first, and then you read the book, because reading the book will always make you hate the movie, right? The book, with few exceptions, the book is always better than the movie. So, I did not read the book. I do plan on reading the book. I do actually own the book. I actually bought it when they announced this adaptation years ago now. I remember when, Steven Spielberg was signed on to direct. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I picked up the book and just never read it. But I am going to read the book. And who knows? I mean, maybe we'll come back here and talk about it. That could be fun, right? I mean, I might as well. So, Ready Player One. Okay, so all the marketing, the trailers were whatever. There were those posters. If you didn't see these posters, they were like, they did Blade Runner, The Matrix, a bunch of other stuff, Back to the Future, and these were just the stupidest fucking posters I'd ever seen. I hated these posters, because they're clearly going for the sense of nostalgia the movie encapsulates, and we'll get to that. But I hated these posters. And so I was not looking forward to this. Nope, I went in expecting to hate it. And there's just the general sense of nostalgia, blatant nostalgia teasing. I was, nah. No, not my style of movie. Whether or not, some of this stuff I do hold nostalgia for. Yeah. So I was, no. But, I think this movie's okay. I went in being very cynical, and I walked away pretty positive. And I also do want to say right now, I'm going to have to go into spoilers, so yeah, that's just going to be a theme of this show now. No, just because format. So yeah, for those who don't know, it takes place in the future, 2045. For years now, people have been basically living in the Oasis. It's a virtual reality thing that people go into, and they have entire lives. It's this next evolution of video games. It's a very possible future. It's one of those things that, I can totally see it happening. It's not going to play out this way, but yeah. And it's this, I honestly could not get a feel for the movie whether or not society was dying or not. Because, he lives in the slums of Columbus, Ohio, but yet we see other parts of the world and the city that look perfectly fine. There are mega corporations, monopolies, basically it's all a stand-in for Comcast and whatnot. But it doesn't really, it feels shitty, but it doesn't feel like post-apocalypse, maybe pre-post-apocalypse, maybe pre-apocalypse, pre-post-apocalypse, isn't that just apocalypse? Whatever. But, yeah, you get a sense for the world, and everything's shit, so people spend their time in the Oasis. It's a believable setting, and then we get the creator of the Oasis, Doc Halloran. Whatever. Don't at me. And he created this Oasis, and when he died 5 years ago, he left a riddle that the person who finds his Easter egg gets $500 billion in complete control of the Oasis. Okay, fine, sure. I can actually kind of see this. I think at one point they're playing Atari and they reference, I think it's Sword Quest, And I can, based on like Sword Quest and what happened with that, yeah, weirdly enough, I can, sure. Of course, how they actually get around getting the Easter egg is a little bit more complicated. Because 5 years go by, and they have to find 3 keys. And I just, the first key isn't that special. I feel like, so there's a portal that takes them to a raceway, and you have to complete the race to get the first key. Okay, and the race is impossible to complete. We never figured out how the portal was open. I hope the book goes into it, because I feel like the actual opening of the portal is part of the challenge, because this actual race itself isn't. And this goes into my problem with like realism and how like authentic this would be in the real world. Because to solve the race, instead of going forwards and going along the track, he has to go backwards. And that takes him to the behind the scenes of the track, which eventually leads him to the end. Okay, that's an interesting solution. The problem is I know people in real life. Well, I don't know them personally, but like, I've seen people like search for hidden Easter eggs and stuff like this before. They would have tried everything possible. Going backwards, hell yeah. Within a month of the race being open, I guarantee somebody would have tried it. So that's why I'm really hoping the book kind of is like, oh no, the race only just opened. And then how he actually discovers to go backwards is kind of weird. It's a very obvious clue that I feel like a lot of people looked over. Yeah. And then we have our characters. Wade Watts plays something. I don't know any of the actors' names off the top of my head. But he's Wade Watts, and his character name is something like that. It doesn't, I don't care, don't at me. And he's big into the whole thing. He's a gunter, which I'm glad they don't use much like slang, because even though we are in the year 2045 and slang should have far advanced beyond at this point, that's really the only one, and they teach it very early on, and I'm fine with that. They use the first scene of the race to teach all the slang, gunters, sixers. And yeah, that's good. They teach it all early so that way you don't have to worry about it later. And it's like 2 or 3 words. I've seen far worse in other works. You have his friend who is a builder. I like the idea that there is an entire profession of people who just like build, who just like people use this for like the fun video game raids and that stuff. But you can also just like build and create. They reference Minecraft in the opening shot. So yeah, I can. It's a good bit of world building. It reminds me of something else, which I'm trying not to address. I guess I'll address it at the end. Because there are some striking similarities. Some of you know where I'm going with that. And then there's Artemis, who is the female. I kind of like how she puts him in his place. She's smart enough to figure it out. She figures out the second puzzle. I'm glad that they did that. But my problem with how they handled her is the romance. I was just talking about this now. On my main channel, I've kind of taken a stand against main male and female characters ending up in a relationship. It always feels bad. It always feels forced. So going into this movie and watching how their relationship plays out, especially at the dance club, I was like, oh, fuck this movie. I was ready to take the same stand I'm taking against it on the main channel. And for the most part of the movie, I was. And then when you get to the very end, because the whole metaphor of the movie, again, spoilers, is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? It's that simple message. Sure, I can get behind it, whatever. And the relationship is a metaphor for the guy, Halloran's relationship, and how he didn't take it, right? He had a failed relationship. So Wade Watts isn't going to make the same mistake with Samantha. So yeah, that works. That saved the romance. It made it make more sense within the story itself. That doesn't mean I still don't hate it. I'm still sick of this trope of main male and main female characters just ending up out of obligation. But it justified it a lot better than some of the other sources I've seen. And then there are the two other characters are, I don't remember either of their names. The 11-year-old, which, besides for the fact that he wasn't swearing all over the place, which in real life that's what they would totally be doing. Trust me, I have experience. Again, realism. And the other guy, I don't remember either of their names. They're both fine. They both serve their role in the plots. I hope they're more involved in the book. Because they really didn't do much. Oh, the main cast, yeah, they're fine. The villain, he's a generic, corporate type. He just wants to take over the Oasis. Because, all the money in the world, right? It makes, sure, he does some evil things. He blows up the slums. He tries to kill the main character, right? He's a whatever villain. And that's the characters. I'm overall positive. And I do like how they address the whole, girls playing as guys online and guys playing as girls online. Because that's another real thing that comes up. And I'm surprised this movie addressed it. Because when we're talking about the world itself and the realism, I have my problems. There's the things I've already stated. And then there's ideas that how the real world would actually play this out. Because, there's been a few things floating around about this. My favorite example is we kind of have something, of course not as advanced as this, but we have Second Life and VR chat. And we've seen what people are doing in those. Instead of being like every avatar ever. You can be anything. Virtual all IPs in the world. People are just making abominations, combining 100 Ugandan knuckles to make one giant Ugandan knuckles, or just a bunch of small ones, giving them emo haircuts. That's how this plays out in the real world. Not all these elaborate, cool character designs and playing as your favorite things from real life. That also happens. But there's that disconnect. There's also the fact that no pop culture has created between the year 2017 and 2045. I get it. It's the movie. It has to be made to take place in, right? You can't create pop culture. That's supposed to come in the future. But, that's more of a nitpick in it, if anything. The other nitpick is, no Disney, no Nintendo, no, there's a few others. Just none of these characters. I don't think there's any Sony. All, you can tell, they have Warner Brothers, they have a few anime, there would be way more anime as well in real life. Let's be honest here. They've got Microsoft, but there's clearly limitations of characters they couldn't use that would totally be used in real life. Again, that's more of a nitpick than anything. But that leads us into the nostalgia teasing. I was expecting, it's all based around the 80s. And I was expecting it to just be blatant nostalgia pandering, to be really annoying. God, what's a good example? There's a bunch of them out there that just, look at this. Isn't this stuff you like? Didn't you love Pogs? Didn't you love Vanilla Ice? Look at it. Look at it. That's what I kind of expected. And in some way, there's a conversation early on between Watts and Artemis about Halloran's favorite stuff, and it's all 80s, right? Because it's when he grew up. And that's when it's kind of forced, but overall, it wasn't as annoying as I expected it to be. One of the worst is the Iron Giant, right? They're like, oh my god, isn't it cool, the Iron Giant? Oh my god, it's Mega Godzilla. But for a majority of it, Master Chief, the Battletoads, and a bunch of other stuff, it's just background Easter eggs. Even the DeLorean really isn't addressed. It's all over the place in the movie. Well, all over the place. But it's really, like, they don't, like, address it. They don't make a big deal out of it being the DeLorean. It's just kind of there. And that's how I think it works. That's why it works a lot better. It's a lot of those, it's admiring it without glorifying it. Which I'm glad for, because this could have been so annoying. I was expecting it to glorify the 80s, which, I mean, in some ways it does. But I think it overall does it very solid. And then the music. It's all your class, right? You've got your jump, you've got the boombox over the head, you've got a bunch of other songs. This did give me a new appreciation for the synth rip at the beginning of Jump. I'll admit that. They only use it like once. But on a scale from Guardians of the Galaxy to Suicide Squad, I feel like the music is actually more in the Guardians of the Galaxy side. Like, it's not as pervasive and annoying as Suicide Squad, and it gets it like Guardians. It's using it to either build up the scene. It's kind of like, remember in the Lego Batman movie where they used the one song to go into the fight sequence that isn't stereotypical fight scene music? That's kind of what this does, and I can kind of appreciate that. And it's solid songs. It's kind of like, what's that? The Minions movie, where for as much of a piece of shit as that was, it did actually have like a good soundtrack because it was taking advantage of, I want to say, it was either 50s or 60s music. But that doesn't save the movie, and in this way, the soundtrack doesn't accelerate the movie, but it doesn't hinder it. And then another thing is, okay, so we get into the second clue, and they go to the dance floor because it's about the shots you miss, right? And eventually, I actually like how I don't like how they do the first clue again. I feel like anyone could have figured it out. But the second clue goes by fast, right? We see when it's revealed, and we see where it ends, only in the matter of maybe a few weeks. But that's what works about the second clue, is that's more believable. I actually like how they handled the second clue in this movie, because it eventually leads them down into The Shining, because they go to a movie archive, and we do, one of the H does all the scenes from The Shining, and yeah, well, all the scary scenes, and it's pretty solid. I like The Shining, so I'm biased towards it, admittedly. But I feel like they handled the second clue really well. And the third clue, I did not. They basically read the second clue out, and a majority of time is spent with the second clue, or at least it feels like it, and I think it's best handled. And again, the book probably does it differently. But the third clue, they're looking at it, they never actually read it out loud. I don't even know what the third clue was. At least I don't think they do. But it's the villains figure out the solution to the third clue. It's somewhere they call it the Doomlands. It's basically a giant battlefield where raids go on. There's a castle, and at the back of the castle, there's an Atari 2600 in which they have to play a game and get a certain solution, right? I have no idea how they got there. And that's half the reason why I am interested to read the book, because I want to know what the third clue was. How the third clue led the villains to this castle, how they found the Atari game. I do like how they actually get the solution to the Atari game, it being adventure and the first Easter egg ever in a game. It feels very obvious for a final clue, but that's kind of what I like. And the villain does whatever here. He summons Mechagodzilla. He uses a force field that gets turned off. It's basically just a stalling device to build up time to let the hero create an army. But then, while he's solving the final challenge and he's given one final test, this is stereotypical as hell, where he's given the choice to get all the money in the Oasis, and he turns it down because, as Halloran says that, the biggest mistake he ever made was having Ogden Morrow sign away the company, so he's not making the same mistake here, right? The final generic test. And they have a chase sequence, it's whatever, and it just kind of ends with the guy wanting to kill him, but he doesn't, and then they get the main leads get a kiss in, and I do actually like how they handle the kiss at the end, where like people keep opening up the door and they just keep closing it. I laughed. I laughed a few times, not that much, and some of it was very awkward. The entire dance sequence was awkward, in my opinion. And then it ends with him meeting Halloran, which Halloran's basic. This I can also kind of believe that he or at least we'll have it by 2045 that he put his brain into the computer, that he's actually alive, and that it's his mind. And they kind of hit at this throughout, because as we see, there are no NPCs. The guy who we think is an NPC is actually Mor Ogden. So being Halloran, yeah, no, that makes sense, because he does react. They do actually kind of hint at it, and I'll give it credit for that. And it reminds me, I'm gonna regret fucking saying this, but Sword Art Online. Let me just say this right now before I get any farther. I do not give a fuck about your thoughts on Sword Art Online. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I don't care. I have seen it. I do have thoughts on it. I'm not going to share them here. Go check out the main channel one day. But it does have a lot of similarities. I mean, this is an obvious one. Because in Sword Art Online, the guy was in the game. He had downloaded his brain onto the computer. He was living in the internet or whatever. The main guy who created the whatever. Them all going in to the video game. I mean, it's a little different. I mean, in Sword Art Online, they died, and here they don't. But I see the similarities. Does it do it better? Does it do it worse? That's up for you to decide, because I know it is a very opinionated topic, and I mean, it is about very similar things, even though they handle them completely differently. Sword Art Online is more about the people and the tragedy and whatnot, while this is more about blatant nostalgia teasing and how great everything is. Oh, I think I just overstepped my hand there. Whatever. Overall, though, I am positive. I do think I liked it. I didn't expect to. I went in expecting to hate it, and I did walk away positive on it. So take that however you will. And as someone who does like the 80s culture, who is a video game guy, I think it does a fine job. It falls into the Tron camp, where it's a movie, or Tron, or even Wreck-It Ralph, where it's a movie about video games that isn't a video game movie, and because of that, it works. Because just a few weeks ago, we had Lara Croft, or a few years ago, we had Assassin's Creed, both video game movies that kind of sucked because they were video game movies. But because this is a movie about video games, it works a lot better. And I give it credit for that. They only pull it off once in a while, and I mean, even Wreck-It Ralph 2 is going to fuck it up. We'll see. I may be talking about that here. Assuming I can keep this channel around long enough. But yeah, no, we're back finally. Will I be doing I've kind of been hinting at a Marvel retrospective, and I don't know if that'll be coming out. I'm so on the fence. I filmed half of them already, but I'm so on the fence on whether or not I want to actually start releasing it. But we'll see. But yeah, no, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more, because we're back, baby. Till next time, peace.